His hometown. Adam Wainwright goes for St. Louis. ALCS begins today. Yankees are in Houston. Meanwhile, Michigan football today right here on 97-1 The Ticket at 12 noon kickoff. Number 16 Michigan visiting lowly Illinois. The Illini had given up an average of 39 points during a three-game losing skid to Eastern Michigan, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Wolverines coming off a 10-3 win over Iowa, where the Wolverines were scoreless over the last three quarters. Number 8, Wisconsin hosting Michigan State today at Camp Randall Stadium. Jonathan Taylor has rushed for at least 100 yards in each of the Badgers' 5 games this year, including 16 touchdowns. That leads the nation. Red Wing hockey tonight at home against Toronto right here on The Ticket. Wings 3-1-0 in second place in the Atlantic. Toronto looking to end its 3-game skid. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more, 9701theticket.com.
The following is a paid program. The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Entercom Communications, its sponsors, or affiliates.
Good morning and welcome to the Hardcore Mortgage Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. I am Becky Alley and I'll be hosting for you today, filling in for Harvey. He's on a much needed break, so good for you, Harvey. We got a great panel. We're going to have great conversations, so let's get right into it. Next to me is everyone's right-hand man, Mr. Harry Glanz.
What's up, everybody? And no,
Snaps.
that is not the voice of Harvey Freed. That is the voice of Becky Alley, and she's going to be awesome, as she always is. And we have some great guests, Beck.
Yes, we have. They are no rookies in the real estate business, and they definitely are no rookies in the studio with us. We love having them. Amber Yacklin, Chris Dayton, the faces of the Dayton Group, powered by EXT. Welcome. What is up?
What's up?
What's up? Morning.
Ready. Let's do this.
I know. I'm pumped. And I got to give a shout out to Chris. He's newly married.
Yeah. Hey, first time doing a radio show as a married man.
Yeah.
You spent your honeymoon in Hawaii, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it. Let everybody know what's going on in Hawaii, my
Wait a
man.
minute, before you get into that,
We do loans everywhere.
I have to give his wife, she literally was the most beautiful bride we have ever seen. She was stunning. She was everything that every woman wants to be on their wedding day. She really was. Congratulations, people.
Thank you. It came off well, and the honeymoon was amazing. Going to Maui, went to the Big Island of Hawaii as well. Went to Kauai, loved Kauai, but I got a little bit complacent there because it was just so relaxing. I didn't want to come back. I mean, it's only 50 degrees here outside and gray skies.
We had our 17th summer. Yesterday was like summer. Today I was like, oh, it's cold.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Hawaii is definitely something that everybody should go do.
It's on my rollover bucket list. It's been on my rollover bucket list probably since I was like 18 years old. So I'm going to get there.
One day.
Hold on. What is a rollover bucket list?
Okay, so I think it's really important to have goals, like in life, in business, and all that, right? So every year I write down my goals and I check off what I accomplished and then what is rolling over. So there's certain things that are like I must hit, and then certain destinations are on my rollover list, that kind of thing. So I like to hold myself accountable, and it's cool when I think if you write stuff down like subconsciously, you're going to accomplish it. So
the only thing that was a little rough in Hawaii was there was no Buffalo Wild Wings to watch.
Who needs Buffalo Wild Wings?
Nobody loves Buffalo Wild Wings like this man. I promise you, he is single-handedly keeping every B-Dubs franchise in business.
But sports they're super early in the morning. I mean, I watched the Lions game. It was over by 10, and I went to breakfast.
Yeah.
Good.
It was great.
Not a bad thing.
Time change.
Anyway, glad to be back, though. Glad to be back.
Real estate, as you probably checked out, because you are in the real estate business, you saw how high the real estate market is there. Values keep going through the roof in Hawaii. Everybody wants to live there when they retire or find a second home there.
I did pop in. I talked to a couple people on Maui, and on the southeast end of the island there, they told me they had a closing that Thursday for $11.1 million, and it was a teardown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the Birmingham of Hawaii.
That's what it is, and it's when you want to live in paradise, you're going to pay to live there, but it's
$11 million
beautiful.
to tear it down.
Hey.
All right, let me jump in here. We're going to be taking all your calls all morning long, 248-539-9797. Also, we want to make sure that you like our Facebook page. You can either like Capital Mortgage Funding or the Hardcore Mortgage Show. Either way, that way you can be a part of our Facebook stream live. We want to make sure that you do not miss a second of it. So if you can't catch us on the radio waves, you can hit us up on Facebook. You can be a part of the action. You can see what we're doing on and off the breaks. It's pretty cool. And as Harry was kind of alluding to, is we do loans everywhere. So we're part of by Fairway Independent Mortgage. We are licensed in all 50 states. So And I noticed that there's a really big tick towards second homes, actually. So people are really starting to look at those lake homes again, that tear down, 11 million tear down in Hawaii. We would love to be a part of. So give us a call. We'll see what you're qualified for. And that's what we're here for. So
yeah, what's going on in the market right now, Becky, as we see it moving into the fall, we did a lot of second home vacation properties, not only in other states, but as we live here in northern Michigan, up north, as we call it. We love up north. Everybody right here.
Michigan is gorgeous. It's
yeah, and as you when you get older, people want to have a second home. You don't even have to be old to have a second home. But here in Michigan, we live for the summers, and if you're a skier, you're an outdoors person, you go hunting, there isn't a more beautiful place than the northern part of Michigan. And even if you get into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So we do a lot of vacation homes, a lot of second homes. So what happens also when you buy that second home, you have a place to go, you have a place for your family to congregate, you're building a legacy through your second home, and you're also building wealth through a second home. Mm-hmm. So when you have these properties and you're building these things for your family, you should consider it, because if you've gone up north your whole life, your family took you there, you went up north with your grandparents, your parents, and you're going to pass that down to your kids, and they're going to pass that down to their kids. This is how people are building wealth too, as well as even better the quality of life and the relationships that they're continuing a legacy for their family. So
what does it take to get a second home? Like how much? I know your first home you can get almost like 3.5% down, or what? Is it a little bit different for a second home?
It's really not. There's no difference. Huh. I mean, Becky, go ahead.
Well, I mean, your down payment requirement is a little bit larger. It is a minimum of 10% down for a second home. But the interest rates are the same. So it's not going to be that huge jump that you see on investment property. But if it is going to be utilized as a second home, the pre-approval process is very similar. The credit vetting is all the same.
Credit's the same.
Yep. You just have to put a little bit more money down. But it can be gifted, and there's other ways we can work around some things.
So the guidelines are the same. Job requirements are the same. Income requirements are the same. Still have to qualify in the same ratios, to talk a little mortgage language. Everything is the same, except for you're not going to get in for 3% down.
Yeah, you need
that's
to.
It. But the credit scores, your job history, how you get paid, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, all the same. Okay, everything's the same, except for you need to put a little bit more skin in the game, because it is not.
How about your
primary residence?
Debt to income ratio.
If you can get a DU approval, and what I mean by that is everything is run through an automated system. So we're going to take your income, your pay stubs, your W-2s, and depending on if you're the upper tier of credit, you can probably get away with carrying around a little bit more debt load for the multiple homes. But a part of the reason why they want you to have that larger down payment is because you're now in a higher risk. They got to make sure that you have one home. We got to make sure that you're able to sustain yourself and show that you have that financial responsibility to be able to carry both mortgages.
Yeah. Of course. And the thought process is, from an underwriter standpoint and a funding standpoint, is as follows. People would be more quick to walk away in bad times than a secondary residence than a primary residence.
Give me a second home. I ain't running away from it.
Right. I'm going to dump that first home and go live on the water.
Yeah.
So that's why they want more money down.
Yeah, I went to Silver Lake over the summer. Gorgeous. I mean, you were in Hawaii, right? So I'm sure these sunsets don't compare. But man, I was like, these sunsets on the west side of Michigan are outstanding. And I actually prefer going up north in the winter because I like to snowboard and I like to do that kind of stuff. So I think we're in a great state where you really can utilize every season, and our 17th summer rolling into October. And I think Mother Nature decided it's finally fall. So that's cool. I like fall. I like my Starbucks over here. So we're good. One thing I did want to talk about is Amber and I were really chatting about how the importance of having a buyer's agent representing you and making sure you guys take the time as consumers to interview agents. And I wanted you to kind of touch on a little bit on that. Specifically speaking, not even just your first time home buyers, because obviously they haven't done this before. They just don't know. And you kind of take for granted because we do this every day. So I wanted you to kind of have a moment there just to kind of reach out and just understand that it's not just about them only working with you sometimes.
Yeah. So especially with first-time home buyers, like a lot of the questions I get is, what is the process? And that's because just as human beings, we want to know what we're getting into front to back. Mm-hmm. And for the most case, unless you are going to purchase a second home, this is the single biggest asset that you're working with, regardless of the price point. Mm-hmm. So you just want to be with someone who can slow it down. Like I do this every day. So there are things that I can skip over and that I know, that I don't even have to think about. But when I'm sitting down with you, I can slow down and I can tell you, here's every step of the process. process. And one of the things that we were talking about is same with when you go with a mortgage lender. If you get to the end and you're like, oh, I hated working with so-and-so. Well, who else did you talk to in the beginning? Because last I checked, you're probably more picky about a pair of shoes you buy at Nordstrom than you are about who you let into your life to sell you a house. And what we were talking about was, even if you have somebody in your life, like, hey, my cousin's sister is, which will also be your cousin, by the way. Like, okay, like my cousin's girlfriend is a realtor and she's in my family. That's awesome. Sit down with her, find out what she's all about, but then also call somebody who, you don't know. Sometimes it's really hard to work with close family and friends because things go crazy sometimes in a home sale. And you have to be able to be with someone who can bring it back together, bring you down, get it done, and bring you to the closing table.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that you are doing your vetting, who you are going to have representing you. And that person that's representing you also might come with their own team of people. So for example, like, if Amber's, hey, I think you should call, Becky over at Capital Mortgage Funding, that's fine. And you can, I can give you my input, but at the same time, we want to make sure that you're setting up, and we don't want to get to the closing table, like you're saying, and say, I hate you for closing my loan syndrome. That is right. Harry's worst syndrome of all of them. He hates that syndrome.
I hate you, Harry Glanz, for closing my loan, giving me 95% of the money. I get to live there, and you ask me for 2 additional pay stubs. I hate you.
All right, more on this when we come back from our break. We're taking all your calls, 248-539-9797. We'll be right back.
Uncensored, tomorrow morning at 9 and Monday night at 6 on 97.1 The Ticket.
Yeah, there's my guitar solo. Look out. Welcome back to the Hardcore Mortgage Show. I'm Becky Alley. I got some alt rock stars in the studio with me today. I got Amber Yacklin, Chris Dayton, Mr. Harry Glanz. Right before the break, we were talking about importance of a buyer's agent. So before we get back into that topic, don't forget, give us a call, 248-539-9797. We want to hear from you. Basic questions, complicated questions. How soon can you buy a house after a bankruptcy?
Right.
All that
Appraisal
stuff.
questions.
Appraisal
any
questions.
type of value, any type of, listen, inspection questions. Why do you need to have your house inspected? Should we ever go ahead and waive an inspection, Becky? What are property values going to do going into the fall and winter now? Mm-hmm. I want to ask Amber and Chris, once we get into it, what their vibe is going into the fall. Summer was great, right? Spring and summer in Michigan, always good. What's the vibe going into the fall and winter for you guys?
Fall and winter are great.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I'm one of the agents that I just don't subscribe to the slowdown. I choose not to participate.
You can't. You can't. It doesn't
there's literally
exist.
people that, come Halloween, they check out and they're like, whatever.
It's the holidays starting
the holidays.
in October. It's Christmas it's Christmas in the stores now, so it's checked out.
But here's what they've taught the people out there. They've taught sellers that it's not a good time to sell, and they've taught buyers that you have to wait till spring to find the best house. None of which is true. Mm-hmm. We closed 2 houses last week between Christmas and New Year. I closed on New Year's Eve day last year. Why? Because people still have to move. There's still places they have to go. There's still things they have to do. Mm-hmm. And it's never a bad time to buy or sell your house in this market with these interest rates.
No,
these interest rates are going crazy. They're low right now. They're starting to come up a little bit because I think the market is settled. But your point is exactly right. There's no time like the present. Today is the day. There's always going to be a buyer for that property, right? There's always going to be a buyer.
There's
always
a buyer.
To find the buyer.
Yep.
Right. And what plays into that depends on the specific market. If you're up and down the Woodward Corridor in Ferndale, mm-hmm. Berkeley, Huntington Woods, all the way up through Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, I mean, you tell me, what's the market? What's the market on the east side? Macomb County's going crazy. What's the market on the west side? Go to South Lyon, go to Plymouth, go to all those places, go to Brighton.
They're booming.
Okay? So it's the vibe. I mean, what kind of vibe is there? The vibe is a strong, positive vibe right now.
So when you hear the words, the market's normalizing, okay, what does that actually mean to me?
Well, one of the big things that it means is that you shouldn't be scared of a house that's sitting on the market for 20 days.
What? Gasp.
Oh my God, 21 days.
21 days.
I feel
What's
like
wrong
we
with
need
it?
like
It's
the
haunted.
soap opera stare after that.
And honestly, we learn by what is happening on the market. But even when the market's going, ooh, everybody's like selling a house in one day, that's still not every house. And there's reasons for that. And we can go into like all the semantics of that. But honestly, don't be scared of that house that's sitting there for 25 days. Go and look at it because it was sitting there maybe waiting for you to enter the market to go buy it.
Yeah.
You weren't looking 30 days ago. Well, good news. Now you are looking and the houses are taking a little bit longer to sell, but it's normal. This is nothing to be scared about. This is not a recession.
No, yeah.
There's no housing bust.
I
Relax.
feel like buyers are being a little bit more picky. So we as agents and mortgage reps, we got a little spoiled where everything was like going fast, hotcakes, right? But I feel like as the housing market has continued to slowly kind of, rise a little bit, the buyers also have lost that sense of desperation where they feel like, oh my gosh, I have to go in 10 grand over, waive my, appraisal, all that stuff. Like, I feel like they're more educated and going forward into the season.
They are. And a lot of that has to do with having the right agent, Chris.
Correct.
Like, what do we say all the time? Like, is it the agent's job to find you the house, or where does our worth actually come in? Back to why you want a buyer's agent.
Right.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I'm like,
I know the answer.
I tell our clients all the time that our value is in negotiating the deal. You want somebody on your side who's going to make sure you don't get burned, don't get stuck in a bad situation, have maneuverability, and actually get to the place that you want to be in the time frame you want to be there. That's ultimately what our value is. Quite frankly, anyone can find a house.
Right.
It's called Zillow.
Right.
They go online.
Or throw it in the MLS and see what happens, right? I mean, those days, I never really liked that approach. I mean, that's just like, okay, I'm a listing agent, just throw it in the MLS, whatever happens, happens. I mean, that's not really cool. To me, And I've only been doing this 30 years, and I never subscribe to that because to me it's all situational. We say that's like baseball. It's all situational.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you're going to negotiate, you're going to negotiate the best terms, price. How about occupancy? How about maybe that seller has nowhere to go, so they want to stay in it longer? Maybe the seller has to get out, wants to get out right away because they want to get in their new house. I mean, you have to find out what's best. So when you're matching a buyer and a seller up, it's not always the highest price, right? It could be what dictates the situation is a little convenience. How about some convenience? How about the sellers and buyers working together to make it happen for both of them?
Yeah, and it's like Chris said, it's really about getting them where they want to go and where they want to be. And at the end of the game, where they want to be in the house. Becky and I have a mutual client who just found her dream condo, right? So it's about where you want to be in your price range, in the features and benefits you want, right?
Right.
So I show up to the closing. And I called Becky and Chris because I walk in with everybody's pumpkin spice latte because that's just who I am. I'm like, it's closing day. Everyone's happy on closing day.
Hooray.
And when I walked in, there's no seller, there's no listing agent, and my buyer's just sitting there. And I go, hey, what's up? And she goes, you might wonder why I'm not signing papers. I go, that's exactly what I'm wondering because that's what you're supposed to do on closing day. Well, lo and behold, seller got mad about a figure on his statement and decided he's not showing up.
A special assessment.
A special assessment that is owed by the seller at closing, which he thought he didn't have to pay, not because of the buyer, not because of me, not because of anybody else. He's not mad at any of us, but he's just mad. And he is putting his foot down and he's not showing up. So when his agent walks in, she goes, throws her hands up in the air and she's like, sorry, he's not coming. And I was like, that's not how any of this works, right? And
that's not how any of this works.
And now
what is this?
my
Like I said, 8th grade?
But like then I'm taking my ball and I'm going home and you can have my keys.
Like, where's Ashton Kutcher? Am I being punked? What's happening?
And I'm still holding the Starbucks, right? I'm like, what? So what's great is now the buyer's mother is getting upset and I'm like, okay, everybody stop. I need to like figure out what's happening here. And the other title company, never my title company, but the other one walks in behind me and she goes, well, we're just going to have to reschedule this closing. And I go, no, absolutely not. That's not how any of this works. So I start pulling up documents and purchase agreements and things like that. And I look at the agent and I go, you need to go tell your seller that he needs to be here or he's going to be in big doo-doo. And that's not what I said, but I used grown-up terms. And
tell him to grab a diaper.
And I said, did you tell him that he has the potential to be sued for a specific performance? And she put her hands up in the air and was like, I don't know. I go call your seller because he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, so the question remains:
it's not an option. Like that's what you.
It's
you
not an
option.
option. You signed a contract. You're coming in, and guess who closed that day? We did.
So Amber, let me ask
put
you
on
this.
your knucks.
Let me ask you this question, Amber. So when everybody went and did their homework on this house and they pulled the title work
this
before,
boss over here closed.
Didn't it show on the title work that there was a special assessment that needed to be paid?
Yes, and I'll tell you what else.
So where was the disclosure on that?
So I'll tell you what happened, and this is the kind of stuff that happens in deals where you just need somebody. When we talk about representation, I think sometimes people think like lawyers
Take me to church.
and like that, like let's go to court and all this crazy stuff. No, representation just means that I have these documents. I'm doing things in your best interest. You have signed me on as your buyer's agent, so I have a fiduciary responsibility to you, and I'm here to make sure that everything happens good for you. Right. So there was a special assessment, and it said even on the MLS ticket to be paid by seller. It says that in our purchase agreement to be paid by seller. The homeowners association switched management companies the day that we closed.
We've had that.
The day that we closed, the new management company sent out a letter to all the current residents saying you don't have to pay that $3,000 right now.
Wrong.
We may or may not collect it in the future. We don't know. And so he read, I don't have to pay that. It's not going to be due.
Well, but he forgot about the contract that he sold everybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Good
it's
agents.
all in the documents.
And he needed an agent to tell him that.
It's all what's in the written documents. You have to be careful what you put in writing because that really means something.
Yep. Great agents get great results. When we come back, we're taking all your calls, 248-539-9797. We'll be right back.
97.1 The Ticket.
We're brought to you by Paulson's Construction. Michigan football today right here on 97.1 The Ticket. It begins at 12 noon from Champaign, Illinois. Number 16, Michigan, coming off a 10-3 win over Iowa, facing a team, the Fighting Illini, that had given up an average of 39 points during a 3-game losing streak to Eastern Michigan, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Meanwhile, Michigan State visiting number 8 Wisconsin today, facing a running back named Jonathan Taylor, who leads the nation in touchdowns at 16 and has rushed for at least 100 yards in each of the Badgers' 5 games this year. Red Wing hockey tonight on the LCA ice, also right here on 97.1 The Ticket. Wings hosting Toronto, who have lost 3 games in a row. The Wings sitting at 3-1 in the young season. Major League Baseball. NLCS last night, Game 1. Anibal Sanchez carried a no-hitter until there were 2 out in the 8th. The Nationals beat St. Louis 2-0. Game 2 today, and Washington ace Max Scherzer is going. Astros and Yankees start the ALCS later today as well. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Jeff Lesson. For more, 971theticket.com.
The only way you can take 97.1 The Ticket with you is the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. Brought to you by the LaFontaine Automotive Group, the family deal.
97.1 The Ticket.
Yeah, my intro music, I dig it. Good morning and welcome back to the Hardcore Mortgage Show. I'm Becky Alley. We're going to take all your calls, 248-539-9797. And speaking of calls, let's go to our first caller, Paul from Shelby Township. What is going on?
Hey, how are you, kiddo?
We're great. How are you?
How are you?
Very good. My question this morning is probably geared more for Harry, but by all means, please, all of you, feel free to chirp in.
Okay.
My youngest son, Jesse, will be turning 25 July of next year, 2020. And I'd like to see him enter the first-time buyer market. But do you guys have, like, any kind of a program where he could come in, sit down with somebody, a mortgage professional, figure out where he is now and where he should be, like, by the time, say, a set date rolls around?
Yeah.
And then if that's true, is there any kind of a lock-in program, or I don't even know if I'm phrasing that right. Perhaps you guys could read around the words and kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. Let me just say, first of all, we will love to sit down. We always sit down with our clients. We do business kind of the old school way. It's better when you get in front of somebody and you can really go over in depth with them when you're sitting face to face. So what we'd like to do, and of course we have many people, and I could do it personally for Jesse, is I'd sit down with him and I would go over and try to find out what his goals are. What's the plan? How long does he feel like he's going to be in the house? As a first-time home buyer, there's so many things that we need to go over because it's just not making that payment. It's about what goes along with home ownership. Property taxes, maintenance, upkeep, appliances, things like that, right? Furniture, blinds, all those things. But we want to put him in a mortgage program that is going to set him up for success. That's number one. Number two, there are all kinds of first-time home buyer programs. It's going to be dictated on what his income is, how long he's been on his job, and how much down payment money, Dad, you might gift him. There's a hint. So I'm working for the kid right now.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to dictate.
I knew you were going to drag me into this.
Yeah, you got to do that, right?
Well, you're volunteering, I hear.
Paint, all right? Really? Okay.
Right. So it's going to dictate all those kind of things. And that's why I'd really like to sit down. And then we could go ahead and match up whatever program is best suits his needs and put him in a position to succeed going forward. So there are all kinds of things. And, of course, we have to set him up with a realtor that's going to find that property. So it's about building the team. It's about the mortgage professional, the realtor. It's about making sure that we collect all the documents. And then your last point is, which is really last because whatever his time frame is, we can lock in a rate. It just depends on how long you want us to lock it in for. So there are extended lock programs, and that's the term that you're looking for. Can you get an extended lock? But we're so far away from that right now.
Yeah.
Because we have to see what he qualifies for. So that's
right.
That's the process that we have to step through. And I use the word process because this is going to take time, and we don't want him to rush, or you for that matter, to rush into anything. So I hope that answers the question. We can take care of it.
Yeah. Now is the 25?
I'm sorry if I could just interject for a second.
Go ahead.
The thing is that, what always worries me, especially with this younger generation, is that, you do hear some success stories, but they're far and few between. I owned my first house at age 26.
Yeah.
And, it just seems like this generation is just becoming a renter's generation. And I keep trying to prod him just to get the ball rolling, you know, and the first step obviously would be to sit down with somebody like yourself. And, then that kind of gets the gears turning, gets them motivated.
Yeah, like I don't disagree with you. I do think that there is a little bit of a stigma where people are tending to buy their first homes a little bit older. Part of that has to do with the fact that with school they're bogged down by student loan debt, and they just don't know. So whether it's the milestone of turning 25, I bought my first house when I was 24. It's scary. You don't know what you're doing at that moment. So you're never ready to buy a house, just like you're never ready to have children. I think like you could have all the money in the world and saved up, and you're always going to be hesitant. So in his situation, I think it's just one of those where he needs to come in, sit with us. We'll go over all the details. We'll get him hooked up with Amber and Chris. I think it'd be an excellent marriage, at least a good starting point for him. And we'll give you guys a call after the show. We'll set something up, and we'd love to see you in the office next week if you guys can.
Yeah, I'd love to take care of it for you personally, and we love doing that. And there's nothing better than watching a first-time home buyer go from the getting qualified to approved to buying the house and then moving in stage. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it's an emotional thing.
It's cool to be a part of that, that process. It's a huge life moment for everyone, especially as a first-time home buyer. We don't take that for granted. You guys don't take that for granted. It's a huge step for everyone, whether it's you're 25 or you're 65 and it's your first home, or if it's your 88th home, it's still a huge step, and we're really happy to be a part of that.
We work with a lot of first-time homeowners, and we have an entire system built around educating them and getting them into a good situation.
We have a whole process. I say that we have a whole plan that we put people on, and I don't want anybody to rush into anything.
Right.
So you just sit down. Let's have a plan. That's the biggest thing. What are your goals and what are your objectives? How long do you think you're going to be in the house? Let's set a plan for success and make sure that once you buy that house, you know what to expect.
Yep. All right. So speaking of buying and selling, we got another call. Let's go over to Denny. He's on his cell phone. What's up, Denny?
Hello.
Hey.
Morning.
Hi. So here's the deal. We are selling our home of 41 years that we've lived in at 78. We've got a buyer, just had the inspection, and got a 35-page report of mostly minor things. And then we got an addendum from our agent that only listed 8 minor things. So my question is, are we just responsible for the 8 minor things on the addendum, or all the minor things on the 35-page report?
Yes, just on the addendum.
Okay, that was easy.
Yep. Pretty easy.
So oftentimes
go ahead.
Just to jump like a little bit in there, oftentimes what happens when someone is sending over an addendum, from this instance, it's from the buyer, they've had their inspection and they have found 8 things that need to be addressed, and then you've got a whole laundry list that's inside of a report that comes from the inspector. That report is really for the buyer. It's not for you. But when it's, in my case, I'm working as a buyer's agent, when I send that over, I want to send the whole report because I want you to see the pictures, the description, exactly what we're asking to be fixed, and that way you have a knowledge of where we're coming from and what we're asking for. But yes, short answer is just what's on the addendum.
Now, as a seller, do you have the option to say, I don't want to fix those things?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. You're not obligated to in any way, shape, or form.
Hey, Denny, is there something on there that is there something that's giving you cause for pause? I mean, is there something you don't want to do that you think is unreasonable, or are you just calling to ask the question if you're responsible for it? I mean, is there something on there specifically that you don't want to do?
Well, there's just, again, minor things like flashing on the chimney, the top of the chimney, and some loose siding, stuff from old age, basically.
Right. So you and I, we've lived in our homes for a long time, and we've enjoyed the life that we've lived in that home, and it was a great time. And now you're going to sell your house. Here's the thing, my man. It was okay when we were living in it, but it might not be okay when you're selling it. So if you just have to go ahead and kind of repair the flashing on the chimney and kind of have somebody go ahead and fix that siding, my question to you is, why wouldn't you want that house to be as nice for the next person that's going to carry it on as when you bought that house?
I agree.
Okay.
I just have one other question before. Do you have a selling agent representing you as well?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious because, usually obviously you want to make sure that you have that, conversation with your agent as well that's representing you. So that way, when you do get these addendums, they make sure they sit down with you and they go over what you're obligated, what you're not obligated to do. So that way you are fully informed and you don't feel that you weren't, you did something that maybe you shouldn't have or something of that nature. So great call. We'll reach out to you after the show anyway, just to touch base with you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a great call.
That was a great call. Yeah. So up to another break. We'll be right back. Taking all your calls, 248-539-9797. Check us out on Facebook Live, too. Bye-bye.
Teamed up, introducing the Ticket American Lager and the Ticket Double Dry Hopped Hazy Pale Ale. Look for them on draft at a bar or restaurant near you.
97.1 The Ticket.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Hardcore Mortgage Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. We're here taking all your calls, and I just want to get into it. We have a couple ticket texts. One was, how much can you give one of your children? So the person's asking, how much can you gift legally per the IRS? I'm not a CPA. I don't play one. Neither does Harry.
Nope.
But the max is $15,000 per one person. However, if you are married, that means that you and your spouse, so you can give $15,000 and your spouse can give $15,000 with a collectively of $30,000 to one recipient.
Please verify that with your tax preparer or CPA, because we are not CPAs and we do not play them on the radio.
That is all true. There's also another question about lake access and all that. So I'm just going to say I'm not a lawyer. I would consult a real estate attorney on all of that.
Deeded lake access, if it wasn't written in the contract, but you found through the title work that there is deeded lake access, it's all about disclosure, right? You should be disclosing all these things in writing because you never know. I mean, it has to be disclosed. So if you think that you're due something and you're not getting and it wasn't put in writing, always got to call a real estate attorney.
Now, here's the things with contracts. I feel like we've gotten spoiled as far as contracts. I mean, we sign contracts every day. We don't even pay attention. Like on Snapchat, you're like literally, I agree. And you're like waiving all of your privacy rights. You don't even know, because most people don't even read what they're actually signing these days. We're so spoiled in that because it's so like, I'm just going to click, 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 and there you go. So definitely make sure you're working with the right professionals that are going to read through those contracts with you. Call Amber, call Chris. They'll slow it down, because buying a house can be a hurry up and wait process. It's very rushy, but then it also feels like it takes forever at times. But make sure you have the right team and the right people behind you that are going to guide you, and you feel comfortable enough to call them and ask them these questions. So that's definitely key.
Naturally, all the trolls are up this morning. I just got a text from one of my buddies who's a CPA. He says, I thought you were a CPA. No, my man, you're a CPA. I'm not.
Yeah, we're the money guys.
We're just, hey, you just come to me when you need something. That's all. We'll come to you when we need something too.
All right, we're going to go to a call. We got Paul. He's on his cell phone. Hi, Paul.
Paul, what's up?
Hi. Hello.
Welcome.
Hey. Hi. I have a question. We've been looking for a house, and like a lakefront house, and that's kind of been our dream type thing. And we've kind of found one, and the house that I have is paid for. I probably have enough in investment to sell some investments and buy the other house, like just buy it right out. But the market's down a little bit, and I really don't want to do that. And I'm just kind of wondering what would be a good way to take, or the best way to just do this financing. The house that I'm in now, we might want to stay, since this house is kind of on a lake, we, maybe make a transition into the house after a couple of years type thing. So just kind of looking on some pointers of the best way to do some financing on this type of situation.
Okay. I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, if the market is down, I mean, the rates have been, kind of all over the place. They are, pretty much steady, but with the recent market, 401ks have been hit a little bit. So I understand where pulling it out of your investments when the market is not low and you're, once that money's out, you've lost it. So I hear what you're saying there. So as far as, where your down payment come from, yes, you can refinance your current home, use that money to pay cash for the existing house. Obviously, we got to make sure that you qualify with both payments, taxes and insurance on the other house. But the money right now and the interest rates, we're at all-time lows. And the rates are not going to go to zero. So I'm sorry, they're not.
Rates aren't going to zero.
They're not going to zero. So, right now the rates are historically low. They've been historically low. So your thinking process is not off to utilize your existing home that you have as equity, and it's something that is tangible and you don't have to worry. It's building for you.
So I have to second that. I agree 100% with Becky. I would not touch your investment. I think you can make more. Let's just say, for example, let's use a round number. Let's just say a 30-year fixed rate is 4% right now. You take the money out of your and it's not. It could be lower, but I want to use 4 because it's a round number, and I can do the math on 4 if you're in a 35% tax bracket. Okay, so
right. It
goes like this: you can borrow money at 4% after tax. Subtract 35% of that. So what are you in the mid twos? So mid to high twos. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but I'll bet you right now that if you leave the money in the market over a long period of time, you're going to get more than 2.5%. So why touch that investment? That's number one. Now, that's all predicated if you qualify. So I would take the equity out of your existing home. I would buy the lake home, And then if you decide to transition into that, you're going to sell your primary residence anyways. You're going to get the money from what you sold on it. You haven't touched that investment, and chances are you made more money on that investment income. Now, again, that's my opinion. That's Becky's opinion. We do a lot of transactions that way, and it seems to work out very well for people. If you don't qualify and you have to take money out or more money out of that investment, that's a different story. All bets are off. However, I would say don't touch that investment money, and I think we'd like to talk to you about it.
I think I definitely would qualify. So I guess one of the thoughts I had before you just gave this great idea was maybe getting another whole mortgage on this house, the one I'm looking at. But you're saying to borrow against my house that I have.
Well, I'd say, what about a combination of both? You take the down payment. I think Becky and I were thinking you're going to take the down payment from your existing house, not touch the investment money, and get a mortgage on that second home.
Here's the thing. Right. There's a couple different ways that we can take this, but ultimately it needs to make sure that it's the right vehicle for you to get you the end result that you're looking for. So I'm going to reach out to you after the show. We'll talk about what your goals are. I obviously have an idea, but we'll figure out, is it better for you just to do an outright purchase on it and you just keep status quo depending on what your rate is on the current home? Or do we utilize the fact that rates are really low? Maybe it's better than what you got going on right now. Take that money, pay cash. You still only have one overhead on a payment that you feel comfortable with, and then you just have the taxes and insurance that we're qualifying you on the other home.
Gotcha. Yep.
There's a couple ways you can go. I think it's going to have to fit your needs and what's going to set you up for success. But I think it's a plan. Again, just basically from what I've heard from you, I would not touch that investment money. Yeah,
that was a great call. All right, we're going to go to Jim. You got a manufactured building question. Give us let's hear about it.
Hey, good morning. It's really, like I was telling the screener, it's really after the fact for me, but I think the purpose of this call is mostly to help anybody else that might be in the same situation.
Okay.
This past summer, we sold a manufactured home in Clinton Township. We had listed it for just under $40,000. I mean, am I allowed to say prices over the phone or no?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we had listed it for just under $40,000. It was a 60-day listing. And in that 60 days, we had one showing. It did not sell. And we were in a situation where we really were kind of desperate to get rid of it. So what we ended up doing is we ended up selling it back to the community for just barely what we owed on it, and we ended up with a little bit of a profit on it, but not much to make a dent in anything. So after we closed on it on the old place, within about 2 weeks, it sold through the community. Through the management company. It sold within 2 weeks for the listing price that we had originally listed it for. So now my mind is going, 100 miles an hour saying, well, okay, did these people just sit on this for 60 days and not show it, knowing that I would possibly sell it back to them for nearly nothing, and then they would turn around and sell it after the 60 days after I sold it back to them, and then they would make all the profits. So my question is there something that I could have done differently to maybe protect my interest in a situation like this?
Now, when you're talking about the community, are you saying, is this in a actual mobile home?
Manufacturer community.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, it's a different animal when you're dealing with that because ultimately they are the ones that own the land. You're paying that lot rent. So, I mean, it's different, because they have kind of a little bit more of control as far as what's being dictated because you don't own the actual land that property is sitting on.
Right.
I mean, what if you had a listing for longer than 60 days?
Yeah.
Could you have done that?
Well, I could have. The problem is we had already bought a different place at another manufacturing community.
In other words, you just want it out.
Yeah.
You just want it out. Okay.
Yeah, because another 60 days, it would have been 2 more months of lot rent, 2 more months of mortgage payment.
At that point in time, I probably think at that time, and I know hindsight's 20/20, but you probably made the best deal at that time for you, and you got out.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
I know
you
you feel burned, but you got out though.
That was a fast hour.
Yeah.
I think.
What a great show. Thank you.
Amber Yacklin, Chris Dayton.
Love it.
Becky, I got to tell you, I'm wearing pink because it is, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and a lot of people have been touched by that. I just want to pay my respects to everybody and say, hey, let's get through it together, all right?
Yeah, save the tatas, month of October. We support you. We all have been touched by it. Everyone actually has been touched by something so tragic. So we support you. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Great show, Beck. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.